Okay, I think we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webcast, which is all about world building. I'm really excited to be here. This is going to be so much fun, and I can't wait to learn all about world building. For y'all who don't know me, I'm Catherine. I'm the communications manager at NaNoWriMo, and I'm here today with some of our sponsors from World Anvil and 4theWords, and they are absolute world building professionals. So I am so excited to learn what they have to tell us. I'm just going to do a quick little spiel before we get into things. So if you're joining and haven't tried NaNoWriMo before, basically we're all three of our organizations are running some like summer camp programs on our websites. So for NaNoWriMo, we have Camp NaNoWriMo. We do it every July. And if you want to sign up and work on your writing project on the NaNoWriMo website, you can do that. All the links to everything are in the video description. And as we go through this, we're going to do just like a quick little introduction. Everybody's going to talk a little bit about who they are and what their platform, what their community is and does and looks like. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat, and I'll kind of collect them and make sure that we get to ask our guests as many questions as we can. And yeah, I think. Sorry, I'm like checking all my notes to make sure that I'm got everything in the right order. But I think that's all I have to start out with to say. So I'm going to pass it off to Janet and Dimitris from World Anvil. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. So I'm Janet from World Anvil, and this is my better half, Dimitris, from World Anvil. So I am a professional writer, published author, game designer, and Dimitris is also a game designer, and may I say, like website coder extraordinaire. So basically, 5 years ago, I went to Dimitris and said, I'm building this massive fantasy world, and I keep getting stuck because all my world building is in Google Docs and I cannot manage. Like my Google Doc was 101 pages long and crashing and linear, but worlds aren't linear, so everything, it was impossible to manage. So Dimitris made me World Anvil, which is a place that you can organize your world building. You can create wiki style articles, you can create family trees and timelines, you can create interactive maps and make tie your world building to your maps. And it's a full novel writing software as well. And your world will integrate with that novel writing software. So he made it for me. And then we decided we would share it with other people. So we're at 1.5 million other people right now.
You're a bit outdated. We're on 1.8 million people.
1.8 million people. I have the old numbers who are just as nerdy and in love with world building and writing and fantasy worlds and sci-fi worlds as we are. So that is World Anvil, and that's us in a nutshell.
In one day from now, we're also launching our sister challenge to Summer Camp NaNoWriMo, of course, called Goal Building Summer Camp.
Yeah.
World Anvil. That will start on July 1st, and it will challenge you or everybody else who wants to take part to write 31 prompts of 300 words each within the month of summer.
31 prompts in 31 days. Yes. So we'll be releasing world building prompts week by week throughout the month. So you don't get overwhelmed, but you do get inspired. And at the end of it, you should have a big old chunk of world building that you can use to write a novel, flesh out a novel world you already have, all that good stuff. So yeah, that is
awesome.
Extended version.
Yeah, the short version. Awesome. Thank you so much. That sounds so exciting. And I forgot to say, some people in the chat are shouting out where they're watching from today. So I'm in Berkeley, California. And where are you guys right now?
Usually we're in Greece, but today we are in New York. Yay! Which is really exciting. We get to meet our community. So we actually have on Saturday, we have our first USA community meetup. So we'll be meeting up in the park to talk world building, build some new worlds, talk about some old worlds, and yeah, have some fun.
Yes. So exciting. Cool. And then we also have Ed from 4theWords here today. So Ed, do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely. I'm absolutely Eduardo, or Ed for short. I'm from Costa Rica. founder of 4theWords, a writer as well. And 4theWords is a site built on the power of gamification. So we bring the fun of gamings into writing. We created a whole world with monsters, quests, wardrobe items, house items that you can unlock by writing words. We have over 500 different monsters, different monster sizes. I think over 2,000 different cosmetic rewards. You can customize the look of your avatar, and all of this you win with writing. And we also have a challenge starting in July. So tomorrow we have our airship expedition. It's a special event for the entire month. We will be exploring lava and ice islands with airships that you'll build with your words and going on an adventure throughout the whole month. And we also have quests that will be aligned with World Anvil's prompts. So whenever their prompts are released, new quests will be released on our site, and you'll get fun rewards for completing those as well. So very excited about July, and very excited to be here to talk some world building as well.
It's so nice to get to work with our friends.
It is.
Absolutely.
I had to say that.
Absolutely. And I have to say that I cannot wait for Saturday to start writing, because I am starting to writing 4theWords, reporting in, of course, NaNoWriMo, and of course, afterwards pasting to World Anvil.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I have used 4theWords before, and I just want to say it is so cute. Like all of the illustrations and everything are so good. Like the character design is fantastic. So yeah, you should definitely. I encourage people to try out both of these.
We try to have the art inspire the writing. So definitely, and I'll give a shout out to the artist as well. Thank you so much for that.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for giving the kind of brief overview. I want to make sure we have time to get into all of that good, like nitty-gritty world building stuff today. So I'm going to start out with asking some questions of you guys that I have that I want to know the answers to, and hopefully other people do too. But like I said, if anybody watching has questions that they want to ask, feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll be monitoring that. We're also going to do a writing sprint today. So we're actually going to get some writing down. We're all going to write together. So that'll happen about halfway through. And then at the end, we'll open it up for, again, if people have questions that they want to ask, to make sure that those get answered. So awesome. Cool. Well, I'll just go ahead and jump into it. And I know, so you guys talked a little bit about your platforms and your organizations and what you do. So I kind of want to jump off from that, and Ed, I want to ask you first, because your website, because you talked a little bit about how the art informs the writing, and your website essentially has an entire world like built into the writing software. So I'm curious what it was like creating that, and kind of how you decide on your themes and your monsters and stuff like that.
Yeah, so world building the world of 4theWords was a very interesting experience. It's one that started, I think, like many in my own imagination, but it quickly turned into a shared journey, which I think is very interesting. So I created it, I think, in a very organic way. I kind of just start writing, and then as the writing flows, I see that there's holes in the narrative or different things. So I'll start digging into those. So I created an initial world with monsters, areas. Those monsters needed a backstory. So we started to create where those monsters lived, where they came from. That area needed to be somewhere. So eventually there grew more areas and an entire world with neighboring areas. And it kind of grew very organically like that. But it's been interesting to create something that then is used daily by thousands of people around the world. I mean, we've had dust warriors, that's what we call ourselves, because we fight this infectious dust that's taken over our world. But we've had dust warriors have dreams with some monsters, and then we go around and create that monster. We've had dust warriors suggest new areas that we want to explore, and then we'll create that journey with them. We've had dust warriors kind of dream up monsters as part of a challenge. So something that started off very small, it was never intended. I think we have over 25 unique areas now with over 500 monsters. So it's not like I had this great master plan when I started this thing of, okay, we're going to get to 500 monsters and they're all going to be like that. It's been very organic. It's been very community driven as well. And I think one of the biggest challenges on my end is just keeping track of everything, which is why I love something like World Anvil. When you get to the point where you have 25 different areas with 500 monsters, we have over 50 NPCs, they all have a story, they all need to be linked somehow. So we have our own Ogamai world book where we keep track of everything just to make sure that the lore fits in with everything else. And it's been challenging as the world grows, I think, because every new thing or every new monster that we add goes back and affects everything we've done in the past. So it's this constant journey of we want to expand the world, but we want to do it in a way that stays true to, to the universe and to the world that we're building. So having those resources that you can look back on, those world building materials that you can quickly search through or control find through to kind of make sure that you're not breaking any rules has been one of the challenges. And it's also one of the blessings to have a community, because they kind of keep you on your toes of, no, that's not what you said in that dialogue 3 areas ago. So we end up changing things. But it's been a great experience of dreaming something, creating the initial kind of foundations of that, and then with the community building out into a more immersive world. And it kind of feels like we're just getting started. We're very excited about growing these worlds virtually and creating these virtual universes where hopefully writers can add their own grains of sand to this universe and build it with us over the years.
Awesome. Cool. I love that you mentioned that and talked about community. And Janet and Dimitris, I want to ask you about community as well, because I've dipped my toes a little bit into the World Anvil community, and it's just so lovely and welcoming. And I see that I know you were saying that you recognize some of the people here from your community. So can you talk a little bit about how your community and your interactions with community have kind of influenced the way that you've approached world building, or what you've learned from your community?
Actually, I think the best example and the best way to show that would be our almost bi-monthly competitions.
Yeah.
One of the things that we never expected to happen with World Anvil was the fact that by creating World Anvil, we would create a new way of people writing world building, which you never expect when you create a tool. Of course, you create a tool and people use it the way they want it. But what we've seen is that through the years, people started writing articles, and those articles started to become informing of each other, to the point that you see that the initial articles we've written and people have written in competitions in World Anvil were very simple. We're trying to follow the rules, but now there is a culture of how an article should be and what it should have and what it shouldn't have. And there are essentially consensus over the community, and you see new people coming to the community, adding to those, or lending from what people have done in the past and growing this pattern, which is incredible because effectively you create a new art form. Okay, it's not novel writing, not even close to. It is more closer to Wikipedia articles, but they have the contextualization of a fantasy or a science fiction world or whatever world this might be, which creates a new form because it's not really, like a character talking or third person thing. It's a different way of actually writing and a different way of interpreting something in the world, like that might be a monster or a person or whatever this might be. And looking at every year in our Best of World Anvil, you can clearly see that the right now, I wouldn't be able to complete. Like literally, I see the article right, I'm like, oh my God, there is no way I can do that at this point in that level of expertise and professional kind of thing. And people are so creative and they just learn from each other. And it is incredible.
Yeah, watching the way that the community has turned world building into its own art form, as well as an art form that informs a novel or informs a game or is the basis for something else. Watching that develop has been absolutely mind-blowing. And I would also say that World Anvil was built by us in our house with our cats, less helpful than you would imagine. And so World Anvil has really been built from the ground up with community, with people saying, hey, I love what you've done here. What if it did this? And us saying, holy crap, that's really cool. Let's make it do that.
That was
So,
was the first month of Gold Anvil. Literally, I would sit there for hours and hours listening to the Discord community and creating and upgrading the templates or changing the features of Gold Anvil. And the reason I was working 16 or 18 hours a day, because it happened a lot in the beginning, was because you get so entranced by the ideas of people and the way they think about things. You have conversations to analyze, and you see people coming in, like literally some of the drop-down lists that they have, for example, for types of government.
Yeah, this is in our world building template.
Yes.
So we have templates for lots, like how to build a religion, how to build a country, how to build a species. All of these, we have templates with,
or for example,
with sort of guiding questions, and we have drop downs that you can select into them as well.
Or theoretical discussions about what are the primary types of conditions, for example.
Yeah.
These were conversations that actually might have lasted 3 days over the community, you know, and refinement and creating subcommittees, literally, I'm not even kidding, of, you know, saying we're going to sit down and we're going to write essentially the economic systems and which will be the options kind of thing. And that thing like motivates you, like as a creator, as somebody who's not maybe not writing world building, but I was writing a tool, it was absolutely exhilarating. And that's why you'd spend so many hours and you want to just wake up and continue doing what you were doing, because the community drives the passion of not only the building of worlds, but also the building of the tool that these worlds are created into. Yeah,
so we've really seen it both shape the tool that has been made and the community really informing itself to inspire each other. And I have to say, it's like you said, our community, they're just so wonderful. Like you go in to do a writing sprint and there's somebody leaving you gifts that say, yeah, you go in the writing sprint channel. You know, you drop a new article and somebody swings into the comments and says, oh my God, I love this, this, this. By the way, you have a typo in paragraph 4. Like it's the best.
Yeah.
It's honestly, that's what you need, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been our experience with the community, and we've been really lucky. And I have to say, massive shout out to the moderators who keep our community friendly and lovely for everyone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Moderators make the world go round, people.
Oh my God, they really do. Shout out to the NaNoWriMo moderators too.
All moderators are the best volunteers ever.
Literally couldn't do it without them. This is great, and I love it. A lot of people in the chat are being like, oh yeah, I know that rabbit hole, like getting into it. So I'm wondering if you can talk for a minute about, and this is open to anybody who wants to answer, but for somebody who's just getting into world building, like just getting started, it can seem really intimidating because there are a lot of rabbit holes that you can go down. So do you have any advice or tips for people who are just like, okay, where do I start?
We're actually writing a book about this.
Yeah.
Wow, okay,
that's
great.
how important it is, and that's how much is being asked continuously.
Oh, yeah.
And effectively, I would say that in Gold Anvil, the answer is use the meta, which I do not want to go into like more detail about the fact, apart from the fact it's actually a scaffold of your world.
Yeah, so I will just drop, if you have a World Anvil account, it's the I on
Bottom
the
left.
left-hand menu, the bottom left of the left-hand menu. And it's basically a scaffolding of the big principles. So the biggest mistake that people often make is that they will start in the micro and get stuck there. And then they lose perspective of what else is going on. And so you either end up with a very small place or with mosaic world building, which is where you have like a block of this and a block of that and a block of something else, and they don't really communicate. So it can feel quite artificial. Essentially, by using a meta and building a scaffolding first, that allows you to then drill down only where you want to, but still have an idea of overarching principles within your world, which stops those story loops that Eduardo was talking about, for example.
But the important thing on that is that you should not be writing more than two, maybe 3 sentences about each of those questions. Like, for example, what is the main genre of your world? Or who are the inhabitants? Or who were the inhabitants? You do not want to write more than that, because twofold. First of all, you should not go into the rabbit hole, because if you start writing and just writing and writing, we can write forever. And I know that's against 4theWords, which is about words, but this is not actually about the part of writing the word. This is about establishing the baseline, which is very important, okay? And the second thing is that this document should be small enough so it's very easily scannable, because you will have to go back and refer to it every time you have to question, does this monster we just introduced change the world, changes the genre, changes the interactions between people, affects the baseline of the culture, environment, whatever this might be. And that is, for me, definitely the very beginning of world building, because without that, you're not world building, you're just writing for fun, which is great.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's not world building because it's like,
not built on a blueprint.
Yes, it's right. Yeah. It's like writing in a world without physics. As simple as like there are no rules. Anything can happen. Anything can happen is kind of like the kitchen sink methodology, which is not a good idea in general.
Yeah.
I've heard a couple of mistakes that I've done in my world building just from hearing you talk so many rabbit holes.
I am sorry, Eduardo.
I know when you were like, "Oh, don't write too much." I was like, "Oh, well, that's NaNoWriMo."
We've made a science out of where to start when world building, because this is a question that we get all the time. This is what everybody gets to world building. They're like, "Huh, a whole world, huh? Everything in an entire world, huh?"
But the answer is
where
no.
do I start?
Yeah. And also, just to clarify, we have written the meta and we're writing a book about it, but we find ourselves every time we create a new project to go literally through the questions we have actually written down and reminding ourselves what they are, because when we're doing the research to write those, we spend maybe weeks, even months, refining them and finding better ways of putting them and actually minimizing. It was an exercise of how much fat we can cut,
keeping it lean,
in order for it to be exactly what it needs, no more or no less. And it's a difficult process. And even for us now, it's a matter of, let's open it up and start writing again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's such a nice key takeaway, cutting as much fat as possible, because I feel like I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. My idea of world building was write as much, and then, like you were saying, make it searchable so it's easy to kind of scan and look for what you want. But it's sounding like less is more here, especially when starting out.
I was about to say that's when starting out, because with that, first of all, there is this sense of completion, right? The moment you finish meta, you're like, okay, I now understand what my world is. When I dream about it, it doesn't go from dinosaurs to monsters to angels kind of thing. It goes to dinosaurs and Paleolithic people, because that's a genre.
I understand the space.
Yes, exactly. And that is an extremely good beginning. Afterwards, absolutely, go ahead, write about your basic character and spend even that is debatable, but I won't go there. Certainly, right, then you can write more, but start with something small, because that will be your guiding light.
Yeah. I would also, one final thing, and this is advice that I've seen echoed not just in writing advice, but also in gaming advice, is don't world build too much ahead of time, because you need to leave yourself space to explore as you're writing. Like, you don't want to world build yourself into a box. You want to create a great structure so you understand your world.
A tapestry kind of
exactly.
thing.
And then some key moments that are important for the story that you want to tell. Don't worry about what that bug looks like if it's not important for your story. And then you need to leave yourself space to actually explore your world through your character's eyes as well, because that's where all the sensory stuff comes from. We call it boots on the ground world building, as opposed to like top-down world building. And that's where you experience your world through your characters, and more world building will come out of that. It's like a secondary phase. So don't worry about that stuff at the beginning. I know that's what the reader sees and that's what your characters see, but actually you need to start with what is at a blueprint level before you can get to that space, because then it's so much easier to navigate. It's like walking around a space if you've seen the map or if you haven't seen the map. That's actually the difference.
And I think also, final point there, because it's important that you should, as a writer or as a world builder, always remember that world building is bifocal. It's always what you need for your story, what you need for your RPG, and what people will experience. Like for you, for example, as a writer, it might be that I need a city that it will be full of scam and villainy, because this is going to be the place, that X scene should happen, and that should be the feeling. Now, that is what you need to know. What the people will experience would be, for example, you're writing notes about, for example, how wet, musty, and horrible and dark the streets are, or, for example, how the main character is a villainous pirate captain with a red hat and a blue feather, whatever this might be. These are the details. This is how they will experience it. For you as a writer, what is important when you start world building is the first part, because that's what you're going to be using as a machining for your story. That's all.
Awesome, thank you. Cool. Yeah, I saw a question in the chat, and it was one that I wanted to ask you guys anyway. Rita, I think Rena Brown asked what's everyone's favorite part of world building, and so people who are watching, feel free to answer this in the chat too. But I want to ask you guys, like, what do you have the most fun with when you world build?
What is it, Eduardo? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, we have to not talk anymore. We've been
exactly. I'm trying not to. Because...
Yeah, for me, I think I'm more of I really like settings and the universe. I like building the physical universe, the laws that play a role there, the rules of engagement, if you could call them that. And then I guess working from the top down. So I start with the very big universe, like who the big players are, and then start moving down to the nation states or the tribes, and then finally move all the way down. I think it helps me when I was thinking, we're so informed by the world around us and the context around us, and it changes the characters, the setting. And it might be because of my experience just building Ogamai, kind of our world. We have this dust that is infecting everything, and that's such a big player in the world. So I guess identifying those big players early on and coming up with those universe rules are very fun. I like to create, yeah, for me, the fun part is creating universes that are similar, but just a bit different, where I can kind of play with the rules a little bit and make it unique to what I'm trying to do.
Interesting.
Factions, organizations and factions. They are the conflict. That is people in motion. It's fantastic because it's got all the trappings of show don't tell, right? You've got the people with their mottos and their costumes and their insignias and everything, and the way they behave and the way that they treat each other and the way the hierarchy is built. Is it militaristic? Is it religious? What is it built on? What is it evocative of? It is everything that is great about show don't tell. It is everything that is great about conflict. It is everything that is great about weird, wacky side characters. Organizations, factions, they're the best for telling stories. They are such great vehicles for world building.
I'm laughing because my answer would be, first of all, what I do first, and I love doing, is what Eduardo is doing, but much shorter. Then I do what Janet does, but much shorter. And then I write people, because the people are the people who are actually creating those organizations.
Iconic characters.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That abide to the rules of the universe. So for me, there is nothing more exciting about having created this scaffold of the organization of their universe, and then writing about a single person, and by writing their story, creating effectively the branches and the stories that in the articles that will actually branch out to become, the detail of the organization or the impact in the world history, whatever this might be. Because I really strongly believe that a nation or a kingdom, for example, is actually the will of the ruler manifest. Therefore, the nation is the ruler. And that's why France was in war with England until the king died, and then it was France, because, they did not have a problem anymore with each other, kind of thing. This is the kind of world building I like to actually really passionately do.
So what I'm hearing is that we all need to collaborate on a world and do one part of the world building.
Yeah. Absolutely. And also, Eduardo, with all the love in the world, I will give you a 2-hour session to go through the world, because I think you need some help.
I will happily take you up on that.
Yay! World building party!
Yeah, world building party. Absolutely.
What I'm hearing.
I was going to say there were some great answers to that question in the chat as well. Dax Hathaway says, I have the most fun with the smaller intricacies that give the extra level of detail to the world to make it more real to the readers, which I love. Oh no, I lost the chat. I forget who it was, but somebody else was like, can I say everything? Because everything. So
I was like, I want to revise my answer. I like that answer. Everything.
Oh, Coleman says, I love writing backstories. I think that's mine too. I was actually just talking about this yesterday on a virtual write-in, but for one of my writing projects that I was working on, I sat down and I was like, oh, let me just quickly outline the 900 years of this world's history, and then suddenly 20 pages later. So Eduardo, I'm with you.
There we go. Demetrius is going to help us.
Yeah, I know. I need it.
Well, just to clarify, I don't think it's a bad thing to write, for example, 10 pages about a character, but we live in a world that sadly time is one of the most important
precious resources.
Yeah. And if you're a writer, you should not be writing 20 stories of world building, 20 pages of world building. You should write 20 pages of your book.
Unless you want to leverage it as extra content on World Anvil.
Exactly.
Which you can't do.
Article count up. Yeah. Or monsters. You were looking to fight some monsters.
Or just like publish it in the back of your book and send your readers there after they finished. You know, they'll love it. We have had a lot of authors who do that. They use like the extra world building stuff that they've done, and then they're like, here, now you've read the book, go explore the world. And then they send their readers to World Anvil and they can go and click things and explore the map and stuff.
Absolutely.
I say that the J.R.R. Tolkien appendix approach, I see.
Yeah, absolutely. The Silmarillion, I see. I'll just package it and call it a book. But it is secretly my obsession with world building.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of time, I do want to make sure I want to maybe take 10 minutes and put into practice what we've been talking about and do a little writing sprint together. So we'll give you you each came up with very good prompts. So I want you both to share the prompts that the prompt that you came up with, and or I can read them for you if you prefer.
Now I have to go search the email where I said.
Oh no, it's okay. I put it in the outline.
Okay.
We're good. I can also read it for you. Sorry.
No, it's cool.
I can start with my prompt.
Yeah, so Ed's gonna share a prompt, and then we'll share a prompt from Janet and Dimitris, and I'll put them in the chat as well, so they'll be there for reference for people, and then we'll set a timer for 10 minutes and write together, and you can choose which prompt you want to write, or if you want to do both of them or none of them, or whatever works best for you. So let's start off with your prompt, Ed.
Nice. So mine would be, what is one thing your world cannot live without? And what would happen if that thing went missing?
Ooh, that's great. I love that. All right, so I'm just putting that in the chat now. That's prompt number 1 that you can choose. And then prompt number 2, Janet, do you want me to read this, or would you prefer?
No, I found it. I found it. So describe the most prestigious or aspirational profession in one culture of your world. So I've written a little blurb about this. Giving characters aspirations and motivations is a great way to get them moving in your story. Do children in your world dream of being firefighters or dragon riders or space captains? What job gets you the most street cred, money, or other perks? And why?
All right. Awesome. Thank you guys. So I've put both of those prompts in the chat. So again, you can refer to those if you want to use either one or both of them. And I'm just going to set a timer for 10 minutes, and we're just going to write as much as we can, see wherever those prompts take you, wherever your writing takes you. And then we'll come together at the end. So, all right.
I have a pig now ready to die.
Okay.
In 4theWords.
Great. Oh, yes. Excellent. Okay. All right. So we're going to start writing for 10 minutes, and let's start now. Got about 5 minutes left. About 30 seconds left. Okay. Time is up. Go ahead and wrap up what you're writing. And if you want to share in the chat either which prompt you used, or if you want to share a sentence that you wrote that you particularly liked, or the number of words that you wrote during that sprint, feel free to put them in the chat. How'd that go for you guys?
Yeah, it was great.
Fun.
Wait, I muted? No.
Nope, you're not muted.
I have written 250 words and I killed my first monster in my new account for the words.
Hey!
Yeah.
Woo!
Yes. But I also managed to take some of the time to create a project in 4theWords for Summer Camp 2018. I create categories for each of the prompt releases.
Nice.
So I'll be ready to start writing tomorrow.
Cool.
Yes.
Ready to get going. Nice.
Yeah.
Which prompt did you use?
I have used Eduardo's prompt, and I wrote about sailing ships, which is interesting. Is in airships essentially in my world, which is interesting. The part of your challenge as well. Funny enough, but yes, well, in Lyra there are nothing if not flying airships. Yes.
Cool.
Nice. I used the world Anvil prompt. Yeah. Wrote about elders of Wometry. Those are the keepers of knowledge, keepers of safety in the valley. So definitely the most prestigious role. We actually have a character who over the years, which is one of the cool things about world building as well, to see characters grow over time. But we have a character who's been growing over the years to become an elder of Wometry. So went that way.
Nice. So very aspirational with a character archetype.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Exactly.
A lot of people in the chat are saying they did both prompts and that they were very helpful. So
nice.
Great. I started trying to do a prompt and then I just ended up asking myself questions about my world, which was very enlightening. And I was like, oh yeah, I need to fill in these holes. But
that is good world building, right?
Yeah, that's good world building. We always say you should ask the question, if this, then what?
That's great.
If this is true, then what does that mean? Like, how does that interact with the stuff I have already? Because that's where the juicy stuff lies. It's like, I have this, and let's see what happens when I put them together. I did 367 words. I wrote about a profession, an aspirational profession, and I wrote about space highwaymen, essentially, who are very romanticized. And there was a hollow flick at some point that had one of these as a romantic hollow flick that had one of these as a main character. So now everyone thinks that they're like these super romantic, wronged, fighters of justice. But the reality is that basically they're pirates and they want your stuff. And they will gank you. They will hang out by the space gates and try and shoot off important things from the back of your ship and make you run away so they can salvage them.
I know what you're writing.
Yeah, this is for we're allowed to talk about it now. Yeah. We've been asked to world build a new sci-fi setting for a role-playing game. Which will be our goal for summer camp. It's a Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, if that means anything to anyone here. So we'll be doing D&D 5e as a sci-fi campaign. We're playing Dragon games, setting, which is really exciting. So that's sort of the first article of that.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah. So you can be a space highwayman. They're called space jump darters. You can be one, or you can fight them.
Yeah, exciting.
Awesome. I was rewatching Firefly over the weekend, so all into space. Yeah. I watched the movie, not the series because I didn't have enough time, but the movie, God, it's so good.
Yeah.
You cannot stop the signal. Sorry.
I mean, the rest of this webcast could just be us quoting Firefly. That's fine. But no, we have about 12 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we have time to answer people's questions. So just a reminder, if you have questions for any of the people here, please put them in the chat and we'll answer them. There was one earlier from Iva D. And they asked, when designing a new culture for a race in a fantasy world, what things should I consider? Which is a big question, but one that you might be thinking about already. So
we have a template for this.
We do, but I would like to say two things there, and I'm not trying to be judgy, by the way. I'm just trying to be honest here. First of all, don't forget that not race, but species, just to clarify, and also a species does not have to have one culture. Chances are they have hundreds, if not thousands, like humans have hundreds. So try, when you're writing a culture, not to try to bend it or to fix it on the species, but on the qualities of the species that will actually affect the changes that this will make to the baseline. So for example, very stupid example, but just talk about it. If you have a species that has 4 legs and 2 hands, that will change the mobility, okay? Yeah. Which means that will change the way they go up and down floors. They might have different types of staircases, for example. But that will mean that the cultures and the way they actually think about things will also change. It might be, for example, that in a new house, you always have to enter with 2 legs at the same time, for example. So that is essentially a good way to talk about tradition and talk about your species without making it a monolithic thing, because in another culture it can be different. It can be, for example, that you should not be entering the house, for example, with 2 feet because of X, Y reason or Z, whatever this might be.
Yeah. So making sure that if you can, not every species is a monolith, and species have more than one culture, like humans have more than one culture. We got so many, they're so interesting. And maybe different ones in different places, because hot countries often have different cultures to cold countries because of the climate, or rainy countries have different cultures to dry country. You can tie it to other things that are not just who the species is.
And that is actually a very important part there, because the moment you start thinking about where do these people live, you start to have so many information about the way you write this ethnicity, like do they sit by the sea? Does it mean, how do they eat? Like, because everything we do, we try to be, or generally speaking, cultures try to ritualize the everyday things, okay? So if you live by the sea, it means that you actually, sea is important for you because it provides you with food, or it provides you with any sort of like entertainment, which actually means that you have traditions, maybe gods that are related to the sea, because
that's what's important.
That's important, right? Like the sea should be good to you, so you should be good at the sea, to the sea kind of thing. So this is where you start. You start with where do they live? What is their story? What are the problems they have faced? Because the problems they have faced talk about the past wars, famine, or for example, problems they have with like how did they came here? They might not have come here. They might have been actually immigrated from somewhere else because they were thrown away, or fallen through a portal. If you talk about the environment, for example, do they have long winters, short winters, stable environment or unstable environment? All of these things affect the way we think about the world around us. And as cavemen, we try to create primordially the most basic of our ethics and social interaction based on the environment we live in. Sorry, I'm a sociologist, by the way, so this is very important to me. So I can lift that to that.
Social psychologist. Excellent. Psychologist.
I'm ready to go.
Sorry.
I was going to say, Eduardo, do you have anything to add to that?
I would just say maybe what their hopes and aspirations are as well. Like looking at the history, their culture, where they're living currently, and then also hopefully where they want to go and what their dreams are. I feel that's very much affected by the history, at least the short-term history, but thinking of where that species or that culture hopes to go to. And I think that can lead a little bit to the goals, what they're working towards. Are they very industrious, or are they more worrying about healing from the past? Are they more worried about exploration and expansion? Are they eating everything around them, or are they more worried about internal politics that are breaking them from the inside out?
And that will build also the games they play.
Yeah,
that's an interesting thing nobody thinks about. Cultures which are focused in war create games that are actually about war. Cultures that are about thinking create games about that. Cultures are about bon vivant and fun. They create more fun games, and it is drinking always games. The same. Drinking games, for example.
I would like to add taboos. Taboos are really important. They're also really good for conflict and writing scenes. Novelist here, and they're great if you've got your character in the A world. They're probably striving against those taboos. And if you have your character in the middle of the story that's discovering a new culture, they probably put their foot in it with these taboos. These are really valuable ways of showing what a culture is afraid of, what they don't value. And they're great for creating scenes and situations with your characters, which are, it's very story focused.
My comedy ears heard the booze, not taboos, but the thing is also the booze. Yeah, but the booze are also very important because do affect how people work. Like there was a whole chapter, and there are people now studying the differentiation that Romans yet with the Germanic tribes, because the ones were actually using barley and making beer, while the others were wine drinkers. And the other is always considered the other a barbarian, and the other way around, because the booze and the things that you're eating define your culture and define also very much how you treat people around the culture.
You're all alcoholics. I don't know what to say. You're all hearing booze.
There's a few in the chat as well hearing booze. It's not just us.
Yes, that's what I say.
Well, we had a question about language too, talking about hearing different things. But Lois asked, how important is language in world building? Like, for example, they have words, but not necessarily a sentence structure for some of the culture and world that they're creating. So, like, how does language fit into your world building?
So, why are you laughing?
Because language. But continue, say what you have to say.
So I would say that's partly to do with what kind of story you're telling. If you're telling a story that is about languages, then language is really important. If you're telling a story about men who go into a big field and hit each other without saying anything, then language not super important. I will say when you're naming things, people and places, that is language in motion. That is show, don't tell language. And that is a great place to take language that you've created in your world and make it do the work for you. So are you using hard syllables like grach and kran? Or are you using soft syllables like elara or hilithin? These are ways to showcase what kind of cultures you are trying to showcase. And character names as well, and character naming traditions. So that's something that you can really play with. If you're actually making conlangs, then you need to be very careful that you are translating them well for your audience and you are not boring your audience, because you are really excited about your conlang, but your audience is really excited about your story. So don't lose focus and get focused on the wrong thing. Your audience is there for your people going to places and doing things. That's what your audience is there for. And the language is an interesting flavor in that. But if you get super into your conlang in your novel, it's gonna be hard to keep your audience's interest unless it is actively involved in the plot.
But word of warning, there is not greater pit of destruction than language building.
You're talking world builder's disease, aren't you?
Yeah, serious issues there. Like, for example, be very careful when you start writing languages, because they can go so deep so quickly and you'll never go out of that.
Rabbit Warren doesn't even cover it. We're talking like burrowing ground sloths or something. Like it's serious. It's an issue.
Be careful. So the language, you use your language, the language does not use you, because it can happen very easily.
Yeah, exactly. Or build it for fun and have a great time. That's also fine. If you want to do that, that's cool.
I would piggyback onto that, just saying a word of warning. We've had some experiences building languages, and it could be just as hard to maintain the language and make sure you're using it correctly and make sure you didn't change some language rules along the way. So if you are going for a full language that you're building out, it's a big task. And I think, like Janet and Demetrius were saying, use it for a purpose. Use it so that it informs, so that it's part of the culture, not just to showcase or show how cool the language is. Not that if it's cool, do it for yourself, but just be a little careful.
So I just last year, I wrote the Dark Crystal RPG. So the role-playing game of the Dark Crystal. And that was an amazing project to be involved in. And there is a language in the Dark Crystal universe called Podling. And the language is completely incomprehensible. That is part of its charm, right? It's all like Maria Podli Pod Popot. That's what it sounds like. And so there are a few moments where I use that in the RPG intentionally because it's funny. So I have a character called Maria Podla Pop Pop Pop. And you have to say her name right in the scene in order for something to happen. And she's got a pet, and the pet's also got this crazy name that's like 85 syllables long. But I went through and I had to go through all of the previous materials that have been put in there to make sure that the way I was using podling was correct, because do you know what? There's a lot of people who've done a lot of work on this world before me. Yeah, it was a lot of work to make sure that my podling was actual podling. Like there's a place called Trabom, which means like, I can't remember, it's something like it's nice to see you or something like that. Where yeah, like I literally had to pick over and make sure it was correct, because your readers will notice. My God, they notice everything. So yeah, if you use it wrong, you can cause more problems than you solve.
But also a little bit aspirational to get to the point where you have readers who are like, oh, hey, I noticed this thing. But,
yeah. Hashtag Star Trek.
Yeah. Yeah. The Klingon is not correct. You're going to get angry.
You know,
yeah.
Well, we have 1 minute left, so I just want to like time has just flown by with this. This has been really, really lovely to have you all here and to have this conversation, and everybody in the chat too contributing. So I just want to say thank you for doing this, and I'm really excited about everything that we and you guys have coming up in July. So I just want to take a real quick last minute to remind people that all the links for accessing all of the programs that we have and stuff going on are in the video description. So remember to make a project on NaNoWriMo for Camp NaNoWriMo in July. And then for World Anvil, create
an account and follow the prompts.
Yeah, so if you go to worldanvil.com/summit, and check out this year's summer camp. You will see all of the prompts appear there as they are released. And if you want to see them exactly as they're released, you can come join us tomorrow on a live stream. So that's going to go live at 7 p.m. UK time, 11 a.m. Pacific time, and we will announce the prompts live. We're going to unpack those for you as well. So we're going to give you some ideas, share some ideas, and our community, wonderful community, will be there sharing their ideas about how to approach these prompts as well, all to get you doing some awesome world building. So that's 7 p.m. UK time, 11 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow. And then we'll be releasing prompts weekly after that until the end of July. And then we'll be doing our reading challenge where you can go and read stuff. And oh yeah, we didn't mention it yet, but you can win prizes doing this as well. So as well as badges, there are the prizes, there's books, there's even a cruise up for grabs. Just say, our star prize is a cruise, tickets on a cruise from LA in 2023, where we will be as well, running games and teaching world building and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's summer camp, guys. That's what happens. We give away cruises and do lots of world building. So it's all kicking off tomorrow on that live stream. Yeah.
Awesome. Eduardo, you about 4theWords.
Shout out to World Anvil live streams, by the way. They're so much fun. We have an event starting tomorrow as well, 11 a.m. Pacific time. We have our July expedition starting. It's a month full of new areas to discover, new monsters. We have a NaNo code that you can use. It'll give you an extra 30-day trial on top of the 30-day trial that you get. And yeah, it's going to be fun. We have different, I think over 60 different cosmetic rewards you can win for your avatar, for your houses. We have a little bit like a house builder as if it was The Sims. Everything you build there is with your words. And yeah, so just come join us, 4thewords.com, create an account, and at 11 a.m. Pacific time, our special event will be starting tomorrow, and there's no way to miss it. We'll have confetti going on the site and all that fun stuff.
Yay! All right, so 11 a.m. tomorrow, Pacific time, confetti, live stream. We're all going to be there.
So, that's when the goods come out.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. And we'll be having more world building events throughout the month. And I'm so excited, everybody, for joining. And we will see you.